Freedom and democracy. In modern society, few things are as adored as these. Even the authoritarians and autocrats are careful to portray themselves as servants of these ideals. Trump's authoritarianism is disguised as a crusade against a fraudulent, undemocratic election. North Korea, one of the most autocratic states on the planet, calls itself a democracy. The far right markets totalitarianism as freedom from degeneracy and decadence. Even the greatest opponents of freedom and democracy go to great lengths to portray themselves as the servants of these ideals. Demonstrated in such pursuits is the immense power that these ideas possess. A power so great that even their opponents understand that these things can only be destroyed by movements that claim to champion them. Freedom and democracy are regarded as near sacred virtues. Freedom and democracy are regarded as near sacred values. Many consider them to be synonymous with good. But they are as illusory as they are loved. Freedom and democracy are in many respects illusions. Not because they are controlled by a cabal of evil elites, but because they have a self-destructive tendency. A self-destructive tendency exemplified in the autocratic parties that contest democratic elections. A self-destructive tendency embodied in the exercise of free speech to promote authoritarianism. Freedom and democracy are incompatible with themselves. They both facilitate their own destruction. One can wield their freedom to promote authoritarian ideas. One can use their democratic voting rights to vote an autocratic party into power. Freedom and democracy empower their enemies. And here one arrives at the contradiction. In order to maintain our freedom, we must restrain it. We can only maintain these systems of choice if we limit our choices. Democracy and freedom are illusions in that we must act in certain ways in order to maintain them. Freedom is incompatible with itself. If people do whatever they like with their free speech, even within the bounds of free speech, they will not have free speech for long. The same is true of democracy. Elect whoever you like, and you can say goodbye to democracy. When freedom and democracy are wielded irresponsibly, they inevitably destroy themselves. It has often been said that freedom and democracy require that people be responsible. This is absolutely true. If people use their freedom irresponsibly, it isn't going to last for very long. If people engage with democracy in an irresponsible manner, they will destroy it. Freedom and democracy are fragile. This reality restricts our behavior. In order to maintain choice, we have to reject many of our choices. In order to have a choice, we have to make specific choices. In this regard, having choice necessitates a loss of choice. This applies to both freedom and democracy. Do whatever you like with your free speech, and you won't have it for very long. Do whatever you like with your vote, and you won't have it for very long. Argue for authoritarianism, and you will destroy your free speech with your free speech. Vote for autocratic parties, and you will confiscate your own right to vote with your right to vote. Choice is an illusion in the sense that we can only maintain the ability to choose if we reject some of our choices. This is the reality of freedom and democracy. And this is not an argument against freedom and democracy. It is merely a reminder of the fragility of these things. Regardless of how fragile these things may be, freedom and democracy are far better to authoritarianism and autocracy. The fragility of freedom and democracy is its own unique form of tyranny. It is a reality that imposes limits on how we can use our freedom and how we can use our vote. We only have freedom and democracy insofar as we are responsible with them, and in that sense, we don't have freedom and democracy at all. I think this claim is right in one sense and mistaken in another. We do have freedom and democracy, but the preservation of these things necessitates their restriction. Systems of choice require that we severely limit our choices. Only through such responsible behavior can they be preserved. We must restrict our freedom if we are to preserve it. We must limit our democratic powers if we are to keep them. Such self-control can be organized top-down by the regulations of a government, or bottom-up by a responsible citizenry. Freedom and democracy both require that we limit our choices. If freedom and democracy do not face limitations, they will destroy themselves. They have a self-destructive tendency that can only be addressed by regulation or responsibility. A regulated or responsible freedom is better than no freedom. A regulated or responsible democracy is better than no democracy. Even when subject to limitations, freedom provides greater liberty than authoritarianism ever will. Even when subject to limitations, democracy provides greater choice than autocracy ever will. Freedom and democracy must be paired with responsibility or regulation. We can either choose one of those options, or we can sit back and watch as they inevitably undermine and destroy themselves.